Welcome to Travel in Style, a podcast created to inspire travel, have fun, and give a unique perspective on how to do all of the above through the eyes and lens of travel expert and award-winning photographer and publisher, Jill Pater. Jill has worked in over 100 countries on assignment and has published 15 books on architecture, design, travel, and gastronomy. Today's show is brought to you by Calpac, a lifestyle luggage and travel accessory brand. To find out more on Calpac, you can visit calpactravel.com, and to find out more on Jill, you can visit jillpater.com. Welcome back to Travel in Style. I'm your host, Kevin, with my colleague, Sam.
Hello.
Sam, how's it going today?
It's a great day to have a great day.
Awesome. We are here for our podcast, Travel in Style, brought to you by Calpac. We are here, as always, with our travel expert, Jill Pater. How's it going, Jill?
It's going well, thanks.
Awesome. Today, you will be taking us to the north coast of the Dominican Republic. Excited for that.
I'm very excited too.
Sam, you're excited for all the places.
It's because I have never been to any of them.
I've never gone anywhere.
Right.
Awesome. Okay, Jill. So why the Dominican Republic?
Well, first I have a disclaimer. My sister lives there, so
well, there you go.
that's as good of
Part
reason.
of the reason why.
Yeah, can't get a better reason than that. But I was introduced to the DR. I was there for a family wedding probably 5 years ago, and my sister decided to stay on and eventually live there. She moved from Los Angeles to Cabarete,
Wow.
which
Wait,
is on the
from
north.
that wedding,
Yes.
she was like, "Oh,
Yes.
okay." So
She stayed.
Oh, to live here now.
Right.
She stayed a little longer and decided to travel. The wedding was in Punta Cana, which is south, and so she decided to travel to the north coast, and she just decided to live there.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What does she
incredible.
do?
Came back.
Yeah,
She's a writer.
Oh, wow.
She's a writer.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm a little jealous.
Yeah. So that's what you went. You went for a wedding first.
I went for a
and
wedding
then-
first, which was in Punta Cana, and then I've been back multiple times to visit her in Cabarete, which is on the north coast.
Do you have a favorite city or part of the Dominican?
That is by far my
That is,
favorite.
yeah.
The north coast is gorgeous. It's actually my favorite part of the Caribbean in general. There's something about the DR. It's very friendly, and it's very, there's not this distance between expats and locals,
Sure.
between tourists and locals. Like people are much more integrated than other parts of the Caribbean, and that's something that I love about it.
I think that's great to know because for me, having never been to the Caribbean, when I think of the Caribbean, all I think of is just beautiful water, but there's all these little islands and places to go. So knowing that the Dominican is, top on your list is good to know.
Making it easy for you,
Right.
Kevin.
enticing. Right. So, how long do you recommend staying there? Since you've gone back so many times, how long do you recommend?
I would say at least, it's one of those places. So Cabarete it's the kiteboarding and windsurfing capital of the world. So they get a lot of expats from all over the world going to do that. But it's also just, in its own right, one of the most beautiful beaches. And it's weird. Normally I'm not like a long-term beach person. If I go on a beach holiday, it's like 3 or 4 days tops. But there's something different about the north coast of the DR. Like once you get there, it kind of sucks you in. So I would say, minimum a week, but ideally 10 days to 2 weeks. And if you can
Wow.
stay longer, if you have a flexible job where you can work from there, then I would go all in at a month.
Yeah, is it the beaches or like what in particular, keeps you want what is sucking you in?
It's the beaches, it's the rum, it's
Yeah.
the late night karaoke.
Good place
yeah.
to have fun.
Right.
It is. You meet a lot of people. There are a lot of expats that live there. A lot of people traveling in and out of there, and it's a place where people go back to. So you kind of go back and you see familiar faces.
So
and
it
people are
sounds
very
like you would
familiar.
go back regardless of your sister living there.
She definitely. She's definitely a big impetus, but yeah, I
Right.
would definitely go back there.
That's great.
And it's a relatively easy place to travel to. So from the West Coast, you fly usually to New York, and then it's a direct flight from New York. There's direct flights from Toronto, from Montreal, and it's only 3.5 hours.
Is that
down.
most cost effective to kind of fly that way?
Typically, flights from the West Coast, it's typically easier to fly to New York because we can red eye to New York
Okay.
and then take the first flight down in the morning. Also, flights go through Houston and Miami.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what time of the year do you usually visit your sister? Or just
I usually
the
visit
DR?
around Christmas time.
Oh, nice.
So I would say the top season there is from late November to March.
Right. But what's
So-
the weather like during Christmas time?
Christmas
I feel like,
time
is
is
it humid?
The Christmas
They get
time during
humidity?
in the Caribbean sounds Amazing.
I just picture
Yeah.
that Corona commercial with the palm
beautiful.
tree and lights on the.
Right.
So rainy season, hurricane season kind of ends, like I would say it's late October, but it's still pretty rainy November.
Okay.
So December, it's still kind of shoulder season there. It's not high season. So it's a beautiful time to go because it's not loaded with tourists,
Mhm.
and you still have great weather. January, February, March, also beautiful weather, a little bit warmer, a lot less rain.
That you actually just mentioned something that's brings a good question to my mind. So when you travel to all these different places, and because travel is so popular now on social media, and it's so much easier to show different places, do you find that tourism is up, like where you go, or I mean, I feel like because you travel so much, a lot of like the places off the beaten path. So do you not really experience heavy tourism places, or is it just like crazy travel because you can basically go wherever you want now because you see everything now?
Yeah, I think, certain places have definitely get hit a lot more than others. With social media, people see places advertised so they feel more comfortable in the places that have been advertised most
It's
to
like
them.
validation.
Yeah.
Right, it's
Mhm.
validation. And so, certainly like Europe gets beaten up during summer, like
Yeah.
London, Paris, Italy, France, it's just jammed with tourists. I think finding places that are a little more nascent in their tourist industry, but still really want tourists, are the best places to go.
Did you do a lot of photography while you were there? And if so, like what were your favorite things to photograph?
In the Dominican, I didn't do as much. I did some architectural photography of a high-end hospitality resort, but for me, the DR is my vacation
Right.
place,
Great.
and I don't take
That's
many
what I
of
was
those.
hoping.
Yeah, yeah, and one of the reasons why we chose this place is to include that, because I would say 99.9% of the places I go, it's not for like pleasure.
Completely for pleasure, right.
pleasure. I always have fun when I go there, of course,
Yeah.
but this one is pretty much primarily rest and relax. Although I do writing work while I'm there, and it's a
Mhm.
great place to relax on the beach, and so I do get other things done, but I
Yeah.
don't shoot a lot
Yeah.
there.
It
How
sounds like
dare you just go for fun?
I know,
Yes.
I know, I don't. I always feel like I'm doing something
Right.
wrong, but yeah.
No, but I mean, you just said your sister stayed there. She's a writer, and you do some writing there. It sounds like a very inspiring place, for you to come visit and just like turn off that part of you as far as photography and just relax and enjoy the scene.
Yes, yes.
So that's great. That makes me feel like I need to go on some type of retreat.
Really,
Like,
somewhere you can find the creative juices.
right. Need to
Right.
go to the Caribbean for that,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
I think we need a work trip,
I think so.
a
Right.
sponsored trip.
It's also great too there because there's enough tourism where it makes it fun, to
Yeah.
be there. There are restaurant options and things, but it's very non-commercialized in another sense. So it's also kind of a detox from that. It's a detox from fast living. Like
Okay.
you're staying usually on the beach or very, very close to the beach, and you're walking the beach every day. To get everywhere, you kind of walk along the beach.
Mhm.
And it's just, there's a certain relaxation that comes from being there and
Yeah.
not being inundated with things of the city and noises
The
and
hustle and
pollution
bustle.
yeah.
Do you always do a lot of eating? And what's your favorite? What's your favorite? I'm like, so I need the works here.
Yes.
How's the food like? And do you always discover something new every time you go?
Yes. So the food, and that's one thing that's great about having my sister there. She's
She's the
on
local,
the scene.
yeah.
But amazing. I am a huge seafood lover, and
Okay.
so the fish there is out of this world. There are all different types of restaurants, so it's not exclusively seafood. You have Italian restaurants, burger places, everything that you'd kind of want as a tourist. But I find the food there really, really good, particularly seafood and the Dominican local kind of favorite foods as well.
Do you find it difficult at all to travel within the country, or is it easy to kind of get around from city to city?
It is. So the infrastructure in the DR, I wouldn't say is great in terms of road travel. So even things that would be a relatively seemingly small distance kind of take hours and hours. So to get from Cabarete, the north coast, to Santo Domingo, the capital, it's like an 8-hour drive, and the roads there are pretty rough. I mean,
So it's like LA traffic.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
8
yeah,
hours. Right.
with bumpy roads.
Right.
So usually, people, it's actually easier to kind of fly to certain parts. Same thing with like Punta Cana. You wouldn't really go from the north coast down there driving normally. I mean, in theory you could, but it's not something you would do.
Yeah.
So smaller trips, like you can go up into the mountains, you can do hikes. There's lots of, different waterfalls and trekking things that you can do in and around the North Coast that are shorter drives. But in terms of like actually mobilizing on the country around car, not something that I recommend.
Yeah. It sounds like you always are able to find something new that you love about it every time you go, not just because of your sister, but because, you're discovering something and then you just can't wait to go back. So how often do you visit her? Or do you visit in general?
So I've gone at least once a year and sometimes twice a year.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And do you always go alone, or do you take the family with you? And be like,
We
let's visit her.
That's a sensitive issue. We tried getting the family there. I'm not sure what their reticence is. I think they just think it's too far to travel.
I mean, it's a different country.
Yeah.
Still better than my family lives in South Bend, Indiana.
Okay.
So much better to go to the Dominican than South
Right.
Bend.
That's what I was thinking. No, now it just, I don't usually think of Dominican Republic when I think of the Caribbean. So now this, puts my mind in a different state as far as traveling over there. So are you, because it's the relaxing part of you and it's like mostly beaches, what kind of things do you pack that are specific to this trip to the DR?
So this is like one of my easiest packing places, I would say,
like
because
bathing
it's
suits
bathing
and
suit. Yeah, I mean this
flip-flops.
is like what carry-on only is made for, right?
Right.
And especially if you have access, if you're staying, say, at a Airbnb or an apartment rental or something, and you have access to laundry or a hotel with laundry service. I mean, it's really just like you need multiple swimsuits or bathing wear, beach cover-ups, and then just very, very casual. And so you never need like really dress-up clothes. People only really wear flip-flops. You never wear heels anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, I mean, this is like the one pair of shoes. All you need is really one pair of shoes and just beachwear is essentially it for this trip, and sunscreen and a hat.
Yep.
So for somebody that's never been to the Dominican, is there a few things that you like are go-tos, like things that you would recommend? Is it certain restaurants or different cuisine or places to go, nightlife? Is there anything you'd recommend for sure?
Well, yes, and the great thing about the North Coast, in particular Cabarete, is it's quite small. It's pretty compact, and so there's nothing. It's not like you have a big checklist of things that you have to do. I mean, you're pretty much at the beach. You're probably going to do some type of beach sport, whether it's you give kiteboarding a try or windsurfing. All the beach bars, all the restaurants are kind of along the same stretch, so it's really easy. It's not like you have to go out of your way to find anything. But I would definitely say trying the local food, the fish, the rum, going out
rum.
like Dominican,
rum.
Right.
rum cocktails, Dominican nightlife. It's funny there. They have like happy hour 3 times a day.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
My goodness, yes.
It's like
So there's
happy
3
day.
meals a day. They just have 3 happy hours.
Yeah,
a day.
3 different happy hours a day. So I think part of it is just that. It's like going there to relax. There's also great little trips you can do, like waterfall hikes,
Okay.
canyoning and things like that outside of that. If you're into more adventure travel, you can, do biking, and there's just whatever you want, it can be kind of curated for you.
Are there any safety concerns in the Dominican?
There are, but not really so much in that area. I mean, it's what I would say for everything is just,
Just be cautious.
Be
Just
cautious at
beware.
night. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think driving, I always say driving anywhere where you don't know where you're going, at night and stuff can be a bit dangerous, especially on like the darker roads there. They're not well lit. And if you're driving between cities, it's just a bit less comfortable.
Mhm.
But not really there. It's the Dominican Republic is relatively safe, particularly in that area.
Amazing. You mentioned nightlife, and I'm always wondering about that, going from, doing the sightseeing during the daytime, but what's your favorite thing to do at nighttime in the DR?
The discoteca?
The discotheque, yeah. Well, it's funny. It's like the same stretch of like restaurants and bars. And so it's really just, relaxing by the beach. The
Okay.
evening bars are there. There's usually a couple of places with live music. There's karaoke nights. There's poker nights. There's a little something every night, but it's not I wouldn't say it's like over the top. Like
It's not like this party town.
It is, it does. It's pretty lively, and there's dancing all night if you want to, if you want to do that.
That was,
Yes,
that's
yes.
what you're looking
There is
for?
the
Right,
discotheque.
I was waiting. I
it's
was like,
there.
the disco.
Yeah.
24-hour
The disco-
dancing.
Yeah, that's definitely there.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, because it's like the 3 times a day happy hour.
Right.
Yeah.
I imagine
dance.
anybody would be dancing in between.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Right.
Are there any challenges to not just getting to the Dominican, but, and this probably can be a question for all your travels, but like with currency exchange or anything like that, like is there anything, in specific as it relates to the Dominican, but that you just kind of find challenging?
I would say, I mean, with the Dominican, because in this particular part, it's a pretty small town.
Mhm.
So like if you're looking for, like, you want very specific goods, it's hard to find that. I mean, there are grocery stores and things, of course, but like if you need like a specific type of something, that you're probably not going to find it there so much. I would say in terms of like travelers, that it definitely appeals to, I would say, kind of young people who are a little bit more relaxed in their travel style. I think if you're somebody who only stays at like the Four Seasons and you want a very, very structured travel environment, then this probably isn't the first place I would pick for that. Although there are places that do cater to that type as well in the DR. But this particular coast it's a little more people who, I would say, a little bit more freer, want to relax, have a good time, aren't like overly concerned with needing to be at the highest end hospitality places, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
That sounds, because I feel like people might get intimidated if they're just not knowing, certain places around the DR. And so that's good to know from
so
millennials.
like, yes, are you a fan of like all-inclusive places?
No.
Or, yeah.
No.
No.
Because you want to get out.
Yeah,
you want to
yeah.
go.
You
and-
want to
Yeah.
be able to
I mean,
experience some
there's a
things.
time and place for everything. I
Right.
mean, and all inclusives are great for certainly people that are traveling with kids, or if you're traveling with like extended family and you have to cater a bunch of different types. But for me, I would never stay at an all inclusive like by myself traveling, just because
Yeah.
it
It
I like
limits
to go
you.
out, and for me, like, food's a big part of the trip. So like going to different restaurants, trying different things, it just kind of limits you. But for certain types of vacations, they make absolute sense. And all inclusives do have kind of a bad reputation, but that's changing. There are some very high end nice ones as well, and they it does make sense for certain places and certain types of travel, but it's not so much my jam.
Right.
Yeah, it's like the all-inclusives. They're like, stay here.
Do not leave.
Yeah,
Yes.
they scare you
Yeah.
of the outside world.
They do.
And so it prevents you from going out and adventuring and seeing the nightlife, the
The
24-hour
rum and the-
dancing, right?
The
things-
3 happy hours. a
the
day.
enticing stuff.
Was there anything that just, really surprised you or took you aback about the Dominican?
I think the biggest thing that surprised me was just how much time I'd spent there. Because as I mentioned, I'm not like I love the beach and love looking at it and stuff, but I'm not like somebody who likes to like just hang out
Just
at the
lay
beach.
out, right? all
And I
day.
was surprised like how much I just enjoyed being there and how long I wanted to be there. Normally a beach trip is kind of would be something I
Yes.
plan for shorter. And there, the fact that I love going back, and there's definitely a strong community there, and so you get to know people, locals and expats that live there. You have all your favorite restaurants and things, and so it's almost like a second home, and it feels that way the first time you're there.
Well, and that's probably why your sister made it her
Yes,
Permanent home.
yes.
permanent home.
So if I wanted to go there, if I wanted a vacation,
Yeah.
you got the hookup, right?
I
There's
do.
some-
Yeah,
got some
yeah. You
connects?
can. I got some
Good.
connects.
Good to know.
That's really great. So as always, we do receive a lot of questions from our listeners about packing. So now for Jill's packing hack.
You
What
want a drum
is?
roll? I can drum
I
roll for
think
you.
I think that's what I needed. A drum roll. What's a packing hack that you have for your clothing? Because I'm throwing my stuff in there, and then I'm like literally pushing my carry-on
Sitting
down.
on it
Yes.
to get it to
Yeah,
close.
Yes.
exactly.
I do the sit on quite a bit with my carry-on to get it to close. I won't
Whatever
lie.
it takes.
Right.
But I'm a big fan, and there are different schools of thought on this, but I'm a big fan of rolling versus folding. I think you get a lot more in. the bag that way, and just kind of, it also helps you as you're laying things out to pack. It just kind of helps you see the density of that item before you pack it, and you can kind of see it rolled up and see, is this worth that much real estate in my luggage?
It's very true.
So I roll, and I feel like I get a lot more in that way.
I feel like too, the item becomes less wrinkled for some reason when you roll. I don't know if you feel that way.
Definitely.
I don't always roll my stuff.
What do you?
Sometimes I just kind of slap it in, so I might not be the best person to take advice from.
Right, but those packing cubes, rolling it and then
Right.
putting it into CalPack packing cubes, I think is changed my life.
It
Yes.
helps. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Jill, thank you so much again for sharing your Dominican adventures with us. It was great chatting.
Yes, thank you. As
Thank you.
always, please join us again in 2 weeks for the next episode of Travel in Style. You can learn more about Jill Pater on jillpater.com, and to read more about each destination, please visit CalPack's blog, destinationcalpack.com, for Jill's tips and amazing photography. Find more about our podcast, Travel in Style, on iTunes, YouTube, and SoundCloud. If you enjoyed this show, please subscribe, rate, and send us a nice review. Happy travels!